Yo, what's going on? This podcast, I spoke with Kenny, the vegan chef. He's a cool dude. He travels all around the world going to crazy hippie festivals where he makes everybody food. But he's also pretty much a master of manifestation and is able to do all of that without actually having money or using money or even needing money for anything because he just pretty much aligns with the universe and gets whatever he wants. It's pretty epic. You'll also learn about all the cool festivals around the world as well as general principles for living your life in an awesome way, in the way that you want. It's a lot of fun, so check it out and see you in the next one. Peace.
Are you ready to get woke?
So, what are your general views on homosexuality, Kenny?
It's whatever people want.
You're okay with it?
I don't care.
What if it's in your house? What if people are right in your house and they're going at it?
It's no different than heterosexuality as long as someone isn't forcing it on someone else. It's the key.
Well, that happens a lot, actually, doesn't it? People
True.
are forcing that hetero all over the place.
People force a lot of things.
That's right.
I'm not a fan of that. Not a fan of force.
But what if people are pumping faggots on your kitchen table and they're just going at it? How do you feel about that?
Well, that's just unsanitary.
That's true.
Not super cool with sex in the kitchen.
What if they
If
put
you're gonna have sex in the kitchen, you have to clean it up really well.
What if they put sheets down and they're pumping in the kitchen and you come in and you see the whole thing, but they're going to clean it all up? How do you feel about that? You've seen it though.
It'd probably be pretty uncomfortable.
Okay. But you wouldn't be.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I wouldn't be throwing a Bible at them or anything.
But if it's in a private room, doors closed in your house, no problem.
It's all good.
All right.
It's all good. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we established that right at the beginning. how Kenny feels about homosexuality.
Welcome to the Woke as podcast with your host, Alex Lazarev.
So I'm glad we got that homosexuality talk out of the way. That was actually going to be a sound test, but it was quite amusing, and I'm like, I'm just going to keep that in at the beginning. People will be confused, and then we'll just get into the podcast. So I'm here with Kenny. Do you even have a last name?
Palorentano.
I'm not even going to say that. Kenny P. I'm just going to call it like Kenny Rogers, Kenny P. And so I basically met Kenny a year ago at Anarchist, and I just kind of saw you around, to be honest. I just saw you around, and you were always smiling and shit, and someone was like, hey, he makes good vegan food. And then I was like, okay, I want to have some of that. And I think for a while it was just one of the things that was on my list. I got to get some of that Kenny's Guy food. I don't think I even did. I just don't think it really happened last year.
Yeah, really. You had some of the treats that I made at the end of Dana's talk. I had like some raw cacao balls that I was giving out.
Oh, those were good.
You had that, but we made plans to cook a meal, and then it kind of like fell apart because we didn't exchange information.
That's right. Everything fell apart. But this year I got a piece of that, and it's been pretty good so far. But as we spoke in the kitchen earlier, or really in the last couple of days, I started to realize that you're not just a guy who makes vegan food. You've actually been on the path, as it were, the path to whatever you want to call it, awakening and such, for a little while. And I realized that, well, actually, because I walked into the kitchen and you were listening to Abraham Hicks. And I was like, well, I know that voice, buddy. And then we had a quick chat, and I was like, all right, this guy's woke-ish, at least. He's on the woke path, so I'm like, all right, we got to get him on a podcast. So that's basically where we're at. So I just want to talk to you about your journey. Where have you come from? What the hell was your past, and what happened to get you, 2013, dropping the booze and all the crap and getting a little bit healthy, with the body and with the mind as well.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll do the short version of the past, because that part isn't as fun. But I was a huge rebel punk kid. Not like as in music, but just I always refused to let people tell me what to do. I got kicked out of a lot of schools. I would, break things, delete all this stuff on teachers' computers, things like that, just because they thought they were authority figures. And that kept up until I was like a sophomore in high school. And then at one point I got in trouble for something, and they called in the police officer and started threatening, permanent records, charged as an adult, all of these things. And I decided to play the game. I was like, oh, I'm not going to just do what they tell me, but I'm going to stop actively fighting against it. I'm going to start looking into college and jobs and all that shit that had never interested me before. And from that point, I had serious depression and alcoholism and other addiction problems for about a decade. Tried to kill myself a couple dozen times. Thought about it a lot, actively, took handfuls and bottles of pills multiple times, and would always wake up the next day or 4 days later how the hell am I still here? And then in 2011, the very end of 2011, I took half an ounce of azaracin mushrooms one day, not realizing that they were much more potent than cubensis and other normal mushrooms, and had this realization that I didn't have like a self. There was no me. There was like a character I would play around my boss and my coworkers and the people I sold weed to and my friends from high school and my mom and my dad. And when I was by myself, there was nobody to be with, and so that's why I, was depressed. I thought that I hated myself, but it was just that I hated the characters that I was playing. And that led to, like, the most difficult year, as it kind of, like, shattered all of my old foundation, but didn't leave me with anything new. And then I slowly, started coming out of that. I discovered kombucha from a job that I had and started taking that in every day. I got my medical card so I could go to dispensaries in Oregon and started meeting really cool people that were, like, taking care of themselves and using alternative medicine, and found out what GMOs were, and just really started paying attention to the world again. I had never, like, gone along with the system. I never voted. I never paid taxes. I never did any of that. But I also just, like, tuned it out completely. When Zeitgeist came out, a bunch of friends all talked about it, and I was just like, I don't even care. I don't want to hear about it. And, 2012 was a lot of, like, waking up to things and starting to pay attention again. And then 2013... that turned into, like, okay, well, now I want to do something about it. And I went to my first protest, my last protest, and I realized after one event, like, we can't just go out and hold signs and say, like, hey, change stuff, please. That doesn't do anything. You need to be, like, actually making a change in the world. And so I started organizing some homeless outreach events with a bunch of people I met there. And within, like, 2 months of that solutions-oriented mindset coming to me, a friend I was hanging out with was like, hey, have you heard of Abraham Hicks? I said, no, and they gave me a really quick rundown. It's this woman, Esther, who does channeling, and I just kind of looked at him like he was crazy because I was coming from a very, like, atheistic, physical reductionist mindset. So, but they had never led me astray before, so I said, yeah, let's watch it, and they throw in this old VHS tape, and we watched, like, a 40-minute Abraham Hicks talk, and it was one of those things where it's like, I don't know. I didn't know if she was channeling or if she was just making it up or if it was just, already prepared. And it didn't really matter because everything that was said resonated so well. And for the next year after that, I spent, every day I was practicing flashcards and other affirmations. I was listening and reading Abraham Hicks all the time. I discovered Ralph Smart and his YouTube channel, Infinite Waters.
Love Ralph Smart. If you're listening to this, buddy,
it's so
reach
amazing.
out, dog. We love you. Reach out.
Yeah. Can I get a hello?
Can I get a
there? So good.
I love him. He has this one thing he does that I think is kind of forced. That as somebody who's sort of a comedian in the moment, he does this one thing where he does the slow-mo thing, and it's just he does it sometimes where it's not it's not. The timing is off. Yeah. And there's a couple things he does where I'm like, yeah, just don't do that. Just do your normal thing, bro. It's cool. But anyway, I still love the guy to death. So my question was, so you weren't into anything. You were just like a normal, basically you were covering up the pain of existence in the Matrix by, drinking and drugs. And I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that, whether they're in that position or they know lots of people who are, either or both. And isn't it funny too that right in your story, right when you're like, fuck it, I'm just going to conform and sort of pretend that I give a fuck and go along with this. Boom, that's when you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's when
that's when it stopped feeling good to be alive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
That it's that simple. The moment you were like, okay, I'm just going to conform, you're fucked.
Yeah. Yeah. As soon as you're not being yourself, you're not being authentic. It makes it unlivable to be here.
Yeah.
I kind of wish I'd figured it out a little earlier, but at the same time, everything happens exactly as it's supposed to. And the last 4 years have just been an exponential increase of, like, awe and wonder and gratitude for the world. The musicians that I started listening to when I changed. That was a big thing, is like I cut out all the music I had that included lyrics that I didn't want to practice.
Right.
If they were saying things I didn't want to be saying to myself, I got rid of all of it. And I started finding new music. And most of the musicians that I found are now like close friends of mine. You know, most of the authors and speakers, YouTubers, all these people that I discovered along the way, I know them. I go live with them and cook food for them, and like it's absolutely amazing how perfectly everything falls into place when you're living authentically and trusting the universe to take care of the details.
Yeah, it's funny too when you get on that path. It's just exponential because once you start working with the universe, it really it's just. I was gonna say it gives you what you want to need, but actually it's not in it. It's us.
Yeah.
So I feel awkward saying it because it's us. So it's basically more accurately you start getting what you need from yourself, and it really becomes a co-creation. You know, and it also one of the kind of the main rules before anyone goes, oh, I'll just get me $1 billion. As long as what you need and want is in harmony with the greater, being that it is. So if you're just like, I want a yacht that's worth $250 million with hoes and drugs and all that, that's not the universe. Universe isn't like, that would be really amazing for you to have that. That's not helping anyone. But if you're like, I really want to start a shelter where I can feed and clothe like 100 homeless people and turn their lives around and change their lives, the universe goes, that does go along with the law of love, which is what everything is. Yeah. And the universe is going to support you more than you could ever imagine.
Absolutely.
Like in a way that will scare you if you're not used to it.
Yeah.
If it's aligned. If it's not aligned, it's going to be a struggle.
Yeah.
It's really that simple.
Yeah. My focus as I've been traveling for the last 2 years now, it's just been service. Even before that, when I was still in Oregon and doing my work, it's just being of service, cooking food for people just because it's good to cook healthy food for people and share it, giving people the answers that they're asking for, being active listening and being a channel myself for whatever wants to come through, helping people to create the events that they're creating and, having no expectation of anything coming out of it except that you've just made that person's life better. And that is a great reward in and of itself. And when you're giving this energy, you're open to this, like always being of service, then all I have to do is ask. I just put out there, like, I want to experience this. And it just happens instantly because the universe is like, oh yeah, I know, you're taking care of your shit. You're taking care of other people. You've got it down. Here's a vacation for you. Yeah. This house that we're in right now, I had a vision of this at the first Anarchist. And I didn't know anybody at that point. That was before I started traveling. I knew a couple of, sort of big activists in Portland, and that was it. And I went to the Anarchist and just meeting all these people and seeing what was going on, I was like, well, I'm coming back next year and the year after and the year after, and I want to get a big house and have a bunch of the speakers living there and, cooking food together. And this year, I went and picked up Benny Wills from the airport, and we got back and made dinner for everybody. And I went and picked up Sterling from the airport, and we came back, and he didn't want to cook dinner, but he ate dinner with everybody. It's been amazing. We've had 17 people here at the High Point, and this rotating cast of just superheroes coming through has been, just more than you can imagine. This is so much more than what I actually pictured when I got the idea. And it just fell into place so easily. I just mentioned it to a few people and started talking about it, and here we go. The Freemans put up the money to get the house and got it and started talking to people, and everybody was like, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
And now we're sitting in front of the pool with the palm trees and the sun.
Yeah, and the beach is not even a block away.
Yeah.
I've been fucking tanning my ass off every day. I'm basically brown at this point. I'm just I'm going to go back to Canada, and people will be like, where are you from, bro? And I'll be like, I'm from here, dog. You don't look like you're from here. That's because I'm fucking don't stay in Toronto, buddy. That's the reason. Because I'm not an idiot. That's why I don't look like I'm from here. Sorry to all the Canadians, but y'all got to get the fuck out of there. No, it's so simple, and it's so funny. I didn't even know where you were. I knew you were a vegan and generally you have a good vibe. So I knew, but there's people with good vibes who aren't on the spiritual and had to have no idea about any of this stuff. So it was such a shift for me. When I walked in the kitchen and you're listening to it, I'm like, oh, me and Kenny need to have a talk, a real talk. Yeah. So we're having it now, and it's the podcast, so it's pretty cool. Yeah. And so the other question I had was, tell me more about the mushroom experience, because you took a really big dose of mushrooms when you were basically unconscious, right? You had no fucking idea about shit. So tell me more about what happened. What were the realizations? Were you in shock? Were you like, holy fucking shit? Were you flipping out? I mean, what was that like?
Well, so going into it, I had actually decided that I was selling various drugs at the time, and I had decided like a week before that I was just going to get as much of all these drugs as I could and just get as high as possible until I died, hoping that would happen quickly while taking lots of drugs every day. And for anyone who doesn't know what azarescent mushrooms are, they only grow on the coast of Oregon and Washington, and like within 30 miles of the coast. They are wildly potent. Like a gram of them will do more for you than a quarter ounce of Cubensis. And I didn't know that. I went and bought a quarter pound, and I got home and went to sleep and got up the next morning and ate like an eighth and started my day. And then went over to a friend's house to have some people come through and pick them up, and I was just eating them like chips all day. And very shortly thereafter, you know, my whole world was kind of melting, and I tried to leave at one point, and there was a cop car that had somebody pulled over, and the lights looked like this rotating force field that was about to smash my truck. And so I was like, be cool, don't get vaporized by the force field, but be cool. And ended up right back at my friend's house, and yeah, it wasn't like difficult really. I sat down with him, his girlfriend went to sleep, everybody had gone, and we just talked. And he was totally sober, but I like pulled him into my trip with me 100%. He was getting little visuals on the ceiling, and we were, you know, doing those spiral talks about, you know, the universe. And I just had this image, like literally an image of me as a faceless body and all these masks that look like my face. And, you know, I had never, for that whole 10 years of dealing with playing the game, I never recognized the face in the mirror. You know, it never looked like me. There was never a connection there. Like, I could see it and say, like, oh yeah, that's the face that I have, but there was never any actual connection there. And this was just like one of those like flash moments of like, well, this is why, because none of that is you. And yeah, it didn't sink in. You know, the realization happened, and it came into my thoughts a little bit here and there over the next year, but most of the next year was actually spent on a whole lot of acid and sassafras and more mushrooms and more weed than I had ever smoked before. And I discovered cannabis oil at that point. Dabs had just gotten to Portland, and so it wasn't like just this awakening moment, but it shattered the old. And it took a year of tripping basically every single day to start to see a path out of that old world and into the new one. And I got into a relationship with this woman. I met her at the dispensary that I was staying at, or going to every day. And I was working for a place that distributed kombucha, and she loved kombucha, so I like gave her my business card one day with all of our kombuchas on the back. Like, here, I'll get you a wholesale discount. And she came by a couple minutes later and gave me her phone number, and I was like, oh, well, that's cool. It's not what I was shooting for, but okay. And I went over to her house after she got off work, and we spent like the next 3 days just talking and falling asleep in each other's arms. Like, no sex, but just like the most intense connection I'd ever experienced. And then we did have sex for the first time, and I didn't think about it at all until like a year and a half later, on December 21st, 2012. Was when that happened. And she's the one that like introduced me to GMOs. She was, you know, her and her kids all had like allergies to soy and corn and all these things that have to do with it, and one of them was pretty autistic from the vaccinations that he got before she knew better, and like just really opened my world to all sorts of things. And then I started, you know, diving into things, you know, watching Zeitgeist and watching and reading and just becoming a sponge for the world again. But yeah, the mushrooms definitely like just shattered all the walls that I had up for so long. And without that, I can't even imagine how long it would have taken to go through that process, because I had no interest in ever changing. Like even when I took those, my goal wasn't to have a religious experience, have a breakthrough experience, see anything different. My goal was just to not be present in my reality because it sucked.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting when drugs can turn into teachers when you're actually just trying to get fucked up.
Yeah.
And so, and that's what sucks. And this is why they, I talked about this on the podcast. They want the ones that don't lead to these experiences as legal. Cigarettes and alcohol are not going to lead you anywhere.
Yeah.
Except destroying yourself, and very short term. So it's very interesting that it's funny because if we lived in a society where the drugs kids would do for fun instead of smoking and alcohol would be like magic mushrooms, acid, other similar type of stuff that could potentially lead to an experience. Boy, it would be a different planet.
Oh, absolutely.
Because you'd trip on mushrooms 2-3 times and you go, you know what? I think I realized something. I'm fucking God. I'm not going to kill myself anymore. I can, I'm not a human being at all. That would be much more just win-win.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
win-win-win for everybody. So, yes.
Yeah, the way that was the first experience I had where it really, showed me something totally different about myself. But all of my experiences before that were mostly with acid, as far as psychedelics went, at least, and it always just shattered my barriers. My you go to a cow town and it smells terrible until you've been there for a week, and then you don't smell it anymore. Whenever I would take acid, I would just get sensory overload because all the things that I had normally tuned out would come flooding back in. Birds a mile and a half away would be so loud that it would cause pain.
Wow.
I would often end up wrapped in a silk sheet in my bathtub with the lights off for 6 hours because I couldn't handle all of my walls being knocked down. And I think just realizing how that works, how much the brain tunes out. The conscious mind only picks up a fraction of a % of what the brain is processing every second, and that is the physical world definition, or the physical world reasoning behind the law of attraction and stuff like that. You use those words and it sounds kind of woo-woo for some people, but when you just say, well, your brain's going to filter out the things that you're not looking for, the things that you don't believe in, the things you don't expect.
That's right.
They're like, oh yeah, of course it does that. I'm like, well, it's the same thing. It's just that if you don't expect good things to happen, if you don't expect life to always unfold perfectly for you, you can't be awake enough to experience those things. You're going to miss the opportunities when they come up.
That's right. And this goes so deep, what we just said on this simple, there's a bird a kilometer away, which you do hear, but you're not consciously aware of it. This goes so much further, because even from stuff like seeing auras around people, feeling entities, feeling good or bad energies that are around, they're all around.
Yeah.
Everything is here. There's so much going on.
Yeah.
But are you listening?
Yeah.
Everyone is connected to source and getting downloads and information directly from source with their intuition, their thoughts, ideas. But are you listening?
Yeah.
Are you clear enough to be paying attention? So, it's so profound, and this is really the key, I think, differentiator for people who get on the path and actually start manifesting and getting the life they want, being happy, feeling joy, feeling love, and the people who can hear about this stuff and kind of go, whatever, it doesn't, I don't get it, doesn't make sense to me, this is all bullshit, and they ignore it. It's very simple. The people who are getting it are actually expanding their senses. That's all it is. Your senses of your heart, your mind, your intellect, the way you perceive the world, and a lot of it comes down to positivity and negativity. If you choose to see the positive and actually look for those opportunities, they lead you to wherever you want them to lead you. But if you're negative and you're like, oh, it's bullshit, I think only bad shit happens to it. Yeah, if you're stuck in that frequency, that is what you will continue to experience. Yeah. And so this whole thing that religion has done, convincing people like, oh yeah, there's a hell, and if you fuck up, no, heaven is here, hell is here. You're living in one of them right now. I'm telling you, the funny thing is, I'm not really believing anymore that anyone can be neutral. I don't believe it anymore. This is something I've been thinking about. Everyone listening to this right now, you're either already in that space where you're doing what you want, you're working with the universe, things are easy and it's all coming to you. You're already in heaven, or even if you're like, yeah, I'm alright, I pay the rent, I don't really like my job, and I don't have that much free time, but I'm okay. No, you're not. Yeah. You're not okay. Stop convincing yourself you're okay. You're not okay. If you're not doing every day what you love with your time, if you don't wake up every day excited and happy to be here, you're not okay. You're already in hell.
Yeah.
You're already in hell. And the great news is, as easily as you got into it, you can get out of it. There's always a way out of it. That's why I'm doing this podcast. That's literally the reason. Getting people to fuck out of it and waking them up and getting them into the reality that they want. So it's funny because I've been thinking this. I've never said this on the podcast before, but it's almost like I'm going to have that be my opening question when I meet people, maybe even on the podcast. Hey, are you in heaven or hell?
There you go.
That's it.
Yeah.
Which one are you in? And if you're not in heaven, why not?
Right. It's a personal choice.
Yeah, and there's nothing realer I've said than that statement. And I'd love to. Here's the stuff that inspires me and gets me excited: hearing stories of whether it be synchronicity or where the universe totally was like, even gave you more than you expect. Where you're like, damn, thanks, awesome. Like, so I'd love to hear just a couple of your experiences where you've been like, wow, it's real, holy shit. You know what I mean? It's all happening.
Okay. So one that I really like because it has to do with this conference even. I was wearing my Anarchist 2015 shirt the day that I met Elias Clay, she's been my favorite musician for a couple years before that. I gave away 500 copies of her CD at one of my events in Oregon. Like, I'd just been looking forward to meeting her for a long time. And at the Rainbow Gathering in 2015, I met somebody who knew her. He was from Denver, and like they're in the same community. So I was like, well, after the gathering, I'm coming to your house. And we went to a party at this place called the Liberty Lodge, and I was wearing my, peace plus love plus happiness, or peace plus love plus anarchy equals happiness shirt from Anarchapulco. And I saw her and like geeked out for 5 minutes, just like ramble, I love you, you're amazing. Awkward silence. And then she started talking about the shirt and the conference, and she had wanted to go and she'd missed it. And I said, well, are you interested in coming next year for 2016? She said, yeah, that'd be great. And I was like, well, do you want to come perform? Yeah, absolutely. Okay, I will make that happen. And I didn't know Jeff. Yeah, I literally didn't speak to Jeff at all the first year of the conference. I didn't know Nathan, and he wasn't running it yet. Like, I didn't know anyone involved with organizing this thing. But I just I'm like, yes, I will make that happen. 7 months to the day later, I picked her up at the airport here in Acapulco and brought her over to the concert to be the headliner for last year's concert at Anarchapulco. And that was one of those moments that, like, it was just totally unreal. We went from, like, just being someone that I watched on YouTube and listened to now, one of my closest friends, and making that happen was amazing. Absolutely amazing. And one that I really like, so children are really in tune with this stuff right away. Like, they know all of these things. They have to have it beaten out of them or conditioned out of them to not be consciously creating their own reality. And at things like Jackalope and the Rainbow Gathering, you really see this because it's people who, they practice peaceful parenting, they practice unschooling, and they just let their kids roam free. And so the 2015 Colorado Rainbow Gathering, I arrived with a few friends, and we're walking into the gathering. It's like a mile-long main trail, and we're going along, and this guy says, oh, if you go to the very end of the trail, there's a giant clearing, set up your tents. We go set up our tents, and we come back into the last kitchen, and before we even make it to where everybody's at in the kitchen, this little kid comes up to us. I found out the next day he was like 2.5 years old. He comes up barefoot, wandering through the woods at night by himself. Comes up and touches each of us and says, ha, 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 as he touches us. I would assume he's saying hi. And then he grabs my hand and like starts leading us down the trail. And of course I was just like, well, let's follow the kid. And we go maybe half a mile down, across the trail, over into another camp, walks up to the fire and taps somebody on the shoulder and presents me to my friend M, who had been there waiting for us for 2 days. Never met the kid, never met his parents. She didn't have a picture of me of any kind. Like, he literally just knew either my face or my energy from her mind and recognized us immediately.
And you were supposed to meet her.
Yeah, she was there waiting for us. Like, I'd convinced her to come to the gathering, and she'd been there just hanging out and stuff, but waiting for us to arrive for like 2 days. Huh. And this 2.5-year-old kid, as soon as he saw me, knew that I was the person that was supposed to be over there for her.
That's pretty awesome.
That was absolutely mind-blowing. And everyone around the fire were all like, what just happened? Why did he bring you guys over here? And we were just like in tears, and it fucking mind blowing.
That's awesome. And the thing is, people will go, it's the kid. It's not the kid. It's just source energy working through the kid to deliver what needs to happen. That's for the benefit of all beings.
Yeah.
And if your actions in life are for the benefit of all beings, you're going to get all the support.
Yeah.
Always. The 2.5-year-old kid that needs to deliver a message always will, because it's for everybody.
Yeah.
But if your game plan is, I'm going to make $25 million, dog, and get a mansion, you're on your own.
Yeah.
You can make it happen, but you're basically on your own.
Yeah.
Unless the mansion is to house orphans, and if there's some like, no, I'm going to use that mansion to help. Okay, that's different. But if it's just you and a bunch of hookers and cocaine parties, you're really doing it on your own.
Yeah.
You can do it, but there's no universal spirit helping you.
Yeah, you don't have that multiplier effect that comes with doing what you're here to do.
Yeah. Oh, it's a multiplier effect is a funny way to put it, like for a video game, but it's so exponential that there's almost no comparison. Being on your own versus having all of creation backing you. It's literally, that's the difference.
Yeah.
So it's it's pretty epic.
Yeah.
When you start hitting it.
Yeah. So, okay, I've got one more. It was really good. I was in Colorado on my way to the 2016 Rainbow Gathering, the Nationals in Vermont, and I was flying out to New Hampshire to meet my little sister, and we were gonna like hitchhike into the gathering together. And I'm checking in at the airline thing, and it's telling me I have to pay $25 for my bag, which they didn't say online. I have like $8 in my pocket. I don't use banks, I don't use credit cards, I don't use PayPal, any of this stuff. And so I'm like trying to trick the machine. I ended up getting it to print my ticket and saying that I didn't have any baggage at all. And one of the employees came over during this, and she's like, "Are you okay? Are you having trouble?" And I was like, it's just trying to tell me to pay. I'm going to go talk to the guy at the desk. She's like, "Okay, well, let me know if you need help." And I get a ticket and it says, 0 bags. And I get up there, and I was like, "Hey, it wanted me to pay for baggage. I don't have any money. Can you help me?" And the guy just looks at me and says, "I just scan them. You have to go talk to the other desk." It's like, okay, thanks for your help. I walk down to the ticket desk and explain what's happening to this woman. She's like, "Well, let's put it on your credit card." And I got this really dumbfounded look that I get from people when I tell them I don't use credit cards. And she just kind of like stares at me for a while, and asked if I could have somebody else pay. Can I call my mom or my sister or somebody and have somebody else pay the $25? No, it has to be in person. Finally, the woman who had come up and talked to me first came over, and she's like, "Do you really not have the money, or are you just being cheap?" And I open my wallet, and I'm like, "Here's the $8 I have." And I explained, I'm a traveling chef. I'm on my way to cook free food for tens of thousands of people. Like, someone else bought this ticket for me so I could get there. I just need to get on the plane, which leaves DIA, which is a huge fucking airport, in like 35 minutes at this point. And she says, "Okay, I'll be right back," and goes to her locker and gets $40, pays for the pass, or the boarding pass thing for me, keeps $5 so she can get a drink after work, and gives me $10 for food. Get on the plane, land in New Hampshire, and I've got a message from my sister that her flight has been delayed for a full day. And we were both supposed to meet there in the morning, which would give us more than enough time to hitch the 3-hour drive to the gathering. So now I've got to figure out where to stay. So I send a bunch of last-minute messages to people on Couchsurfing and get a reply. And this woman who has been vegan for years, doesn't know how to cook, and wants to learn some recipes. So she comes 40 minutes from her house to pick me up at the airport. I offered to take a bus, and she's like, "No, I'll come get you." Drives me to her house, drop my stuff off, drives me to the grocery store, spends a bunch of money on organic food so I can cook a meal for us. We spend all night talking and just sharing. She's, one of those people that's has everything except that last little bit of faith in herself to change it. Mm-hmm. And so I just spent 8 hours, reminding her how powerful she is, basically. And I also sent out a message on Facebook at this point through some groups, that my little sister and I are in Manchester, New Hampshire, looking for a ride to the gathering the next day. And this other guy who never met contacts me and says, "Hey, I'm, an hour and a half west of Manchester, which would be closer to the gathering, but I'll come get you guys." So the next day, he comes and picks me up at this woman's house, drives to the airport, we pick my little sister up, and then drives to the gathering and brings us home. And he went like altogether he went like 2.5 hours out of his way just to pick us up. And then because he met us and had some conversation on the way and stuff, he ended up plugging in with my kitchen and working as part of the kitchen for the entire week that he was there. And the woman that I met on couch surfing brought like 4 of her friends, and they came and experienced the gathering for the first time. And yeah, that's basically just like every day for me at this point. I find if I've got plans and I'm like in a place where it's easy, life's just kind of easy and cool. But as soon as I just like know where I'm going and have no plans and no money and start walking, the most beautiful things start happening. I just trust fall the universe as often as possible. And that's part of why I don't carry money. I get rid of currencies as quickly as I get them, just to leave myself open for whatever wants to flow in, rather than ever trying to like save. And I feel like a lot of people's actions around money and stuff is based on a scarcity mindset. And I know for a fact that there's always more than I need. There's always more than enough available for me to take care of myself and other people. And it always manifests that way.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It is. Yeah.
I mean, and it's so fascinating, too, because very few people, I think, even think that way, and I don't think I've even heard anybody say it, that there's a neediness just to have just the whole money thing, because it's always like, oh, I have this money, oh, I don't know if I want to spend it, maybe I'll save it, maybe I'll invest, there's this whole, oh, I want more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and there's this whole, people are always, the whole system, save money, you might need to save. But you're just like, nope, fuck it, spend it.
Yep.
This more is going to come, for what? What am I going to hold on to?
Yep.
And then you're worried about it. And this is what I've noticed this when I had money, when I had a shit ton of money at one point, it fucks you up because you're just worried about it and like not losing it, and then you want more money, and then you feel better because you have more money than other people, and it's fucked.
Yeah.
It really is.
Yeah.
So what a concept, huh?
Yeah. I
just
basically
fuck it.
just let it go. Well, especially if you're using it on good things, then that's going to come back. If I make $100, helping somebody, like catering an event, I spend that $100 within a couple days buying organic food to feed whoever I'm staying with, whoever's in the community where I am, and that I'm just reinvesting all of that energy right back into the people and the relationships around me, and keeping the energy flowing. If money is a representation of energy, anytime energy stopped, that's unhealthy. Like that's where disease comes from. Is most of the diseases we have are trauma. They're energy that we never process. We bottle it up and hold it instead, and that causes problems. It's the same thing with your fiscal energy. This stuff needs to keep moving. It needs to keep flowing in order to serve its purpose.
That's right. It's very interesting. And again, I've never heard anybody say that. Like no one ever says that about money. It's literally the opposite of all beliefs about money that we have in Western society. Save it up, save it for your retirement. Use it when you're 65. Are you fucking serious?
Right.
Are you retarded? They're gonna steal it anyway. Use it now, you idiot.
Oh.
For a lot of reasons, it's extra retarded, that whole thing. Fucking awesome. So you're here now. I know you've got quite a crazy plan. So I'd like to know, what's your plans for the next sort of few months, and in general, what's long term? Is there any sort of kind of a desire on some level, or just go with the flow and enjoy life and see where it takes you?
Mostly, just going with the flow. I set out clear intentions for myself, but they're very basic clear intentions. I'm always calling in guidance, healing, support, and love. And that, other than that, I just trust it to all come together as it will. I've had pretty clear guidance for the last couple of years that by the time I'm 30, I'll probably have found the piece of land I'm going to live on, and we'll start having kids of my own and practicing a lot of this stuff. So I feel like, as far as what we can do to change the world, number 1, heal yourself. Number 2, raise kids in a better way than the rest of the world is. And, just really help the next generation have an easier time of it. They don't have to go through 25 years of programming and then unlearning it. So that's, in the next 2 years, I feel like I'm gonna find the village where I plan to be. I have no interest in living anywhere near what would be considered a city or a town. It needs to be like off-grid, growing our own food. Not necessarily primitive. Like, we can have energy. We can have a lot of the people that I'm talking to want to do like research into free energy and alternative energies and stuff, but just self-sustaining as like the key. And then for this year, in the next few months, I've got a lot planned. April, I'm going to the Free Your Mind conference up in Philadelphia, and I just put out a post on Facebook a couple days ago with like a little bit of my list and the events that I didn't have taken care of yet. Most of the festivals I'm going to, I've worked with them the last couple of years. Free Your Mind Festival, there's no options for volunteering or anything, and I, don't really know how I would come up with $160. So I said that on there. And then this other one called the Eco-Sex Convergence in June. Also, there was it said they were all full as far as scholarships and work trade and stuff. So I just put that on there too. And in the 4 days since I made that post, Adam Kokesh is getting me into Free Your Mind conference for free as his assistant for the weekend. And an opening...
he's going to want hand jobs, right? I mean, I know Kokesh, so that's definitely... as long as you're aware.
No, he's good with just the vegan food. Then the Eco-Sex Convergence, I emailed them and said, hey, I know you don't have options right now, but here's who I am, here's what I'm doing. If I have to, I'll go exchange energy with somebody for money, but I would much rather just do a direct energy exchange. And they just had an opening in their kitchen team come up because somebody can't make it.
Bam!
Just
like
that fast. Just that fast. So, I've got Free Your Mind, Tribal Vision Festival in Colorado, the Village Building Convergence in Portland, which is amazing. National Rainbow Gathering, I'll be there for probably 3.5, 4 weeks. And then the day after I leave the National Rainbow Gathering, I'm going on the Abraham Hicks Alaska Cruise.
Ooh!
Which I've wanted to do for years, but it's always the same weekend the same week as Nationals.
I see.
So this is the first time they don't overlap. And that's the only thing left that I've got to manifest is that, like $2,000 to make that happen.
We both know it's gonna happen.
At this point, it's always just like excitement about what sort of interesting way it's going to happen.
Right.
I know it's going to happen. There's no doubt there. It's just a matter of like, what form is it going to take?
Right.
And Kokesh actually hit me up to cater a week-long event at his house in a couple months, or his ranch. So I'm sure that'll take care of part of it, and we'll see what happens.
Now, one of the ideas I had was if I was to go with some of these events, because there's that fake spiritualism where people are like, oh, I do yoga, I eat vegan, so I'm so spiritual, but they're not actually looking at their shit and actually really dealing or manifesting anything. They're just like, they think they're better than people because they fucking go to an expensive yoga studio. Yeah. It's retarded. So, which events are not those people? Which events are people actually doing the work, that are truly working on themselves, truly manifesting, that I go into a room and go, oh, this is my spiritual family. I love all these people. Yeah. Which ones are those? Those ones I might be interested in coming down to.
Well, so the part of how a lot of it's just like I go and I experience it and I decide if I'm going to go again or not. One thing is I found is I don't go to festivals where they sell alcohol. Because that leads to a lot. That's the people that are like, oh, I'm going to do yoga in the morning and I'm going to eat vegan all day and I'm going to get trashed at night. So I don't go to any of those. The ones that are really good, like Unify Fest, this was our first year in 2016. Fucking amazing. Absolutely amazing. Every single person there had like a hugely life-changing experience. It was leaps and bounds ahead of most, and it was the first year of the festival too, which was kind of mind-blowing. It's in New Mexico. Sister Winds in Colorado, really small, couple hundred people, and it's 100% healing. Basically, like, my thing is like no alcohol being sold for one thing. I want the event to be a ritual. Like there should be an opening circle, opening ceremony, a closing ceremony, and the whole thing should be intentional throughout.
Right.
And that Beloved Festival is one of the biggest ones that's like that. The Rainbow Gatherings are all like that. There's people that are out there to get fucked up too, but when you have tens of thousands of people, obviously you're going to have a whole range. But there's so many people that aren't. And that Tribal Vision Festival, like Tribal Vision, Unify, and the Black Hills Unity concert are all ones where, one, there's no alcohol involved whatsoever. Two, they all bring in tribal elders from all around the world as part of it. They all have lots of different fire ceremony, water ceremony, cacao ceremony. They all have an opening and a closing circle to create a true container for the event. Those are like three of the most powerful ones. This will be my third year at Unity. This will be my second year out of the 2 years of Unify. And this will be my second year at Tribal Vision too. And they're all in the I-25 corridor. South Dakota, Colorado, and New Mexico.
You know what's sad? I've never been to a festival.
Oh man,
Never been.
I never had until 2 years ago. I always
Literally.
I always thought I didn't want to, because people would talk about like the ones that are just festivals, music festivals.
Yeah,
you know?
I just don't give a shit
Friend,
about that.
friend told me about. Oh, you should check out Rainbow. I was like, yeah, I don't do festivals. It's like it's not a festival. Go look it up.
Yeah.
And then I went, I went to my first music festival was Arise, which I won't do again because it's just over. There's a lot of people that are there for the intention, but there's a lot of alcohol sold. It's a lot more focused on music.
Yeah,
the money comes from fracking.
As soon as,
like,
oh fuck, Jesus
yeah,
Christ.
it's all. Yeah, that was the only one I've been to with more than 2,000 people. I try to stick besides Rainbow gatherings, but like as far as festivals go, I find that 2,000 and under is like the perfect
right.
container for it. You don't get any like giant name musicians that bring in the mainstream crowd,
Right.
and people are really focused on the intention of it.
That sounds cool, man. You're making me second guess my I'm not going to the U.S. anymore policy.
Right.
I'm sticking to it for now, but maybe at some point.
There's some good ones elsewhere too. Guatemala has the Cosmic Convergence Festival. Panama has Tribal Gathering. There's a couple. I'll show you, or if you've got my website pulled up, I've got a list
Oh yeah.
that if you go under research,
Yeah.
I gotta make this easier to find. My list,
Oops. Yeah.
and then the world changing events.
Oh sweet.
I don't know when I last updated the dates for all of it on this version, but
We'll have a lot of stuff.
oh wow, that looks like shit on here. Huh. It's just like a Google Doc that I have embedded.
Right.
But yeah, I found like 150 of them so far.
Oh yeah, it's opening it. That's cool. Nice.
So it should be the one that I updated like a month and a half ago then.
Yeah, dude.
It's one of those things that I should do a lot more often than I do.
Awesome. So you're basically just going full hippie mode, going to all these love festivals and just veganing out.
Yeah.
And just having a great time.
yeah. This is my third festival season of cooking. Mostly cooking. I do other stuff. I'm always a part of the build team too, and there was one that I like ran the office and did the accounting and quartermaster stuff, like my old world job skills put to use. But yeah, mostly I just get to go to these events for free, have a place to camp for free, and someone provides me with thousands of dollars worth of organic vegan food so that I can just cook to my heart's content and feed, tens of thousands of people. And then from there, I meet all the people that are like, oh, come live at our community for a week, or come cook for our family for a week, or we've got this event going on, you want to ride over there and we'll get you into that one for free. Or, I try to leave at least a week in between events usually, so I can just wait until that last day of a festival and see where guidance wants me to go for the next little time period. And that finding that balance has been really important between scheduling, so I have these things lined up, I can work with them year after year, but still following the flow. It's been a blast.
Dude, sounds like you're having a fucking great time.
Yeah.
And I look forward to catching up with you next year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let the people know where they can find you if they want to learn more about you, and if potentially they want to book you to cater for some sort of fancy event that may or may not pay $2,000 plus, or maybe just half that.
Right. Well, I've got a website, kennysconsciouskitchen.com, and then my blog is actually on Steemit, steemit.com/kennyskitchen, and you can find my YouTube channel as well, just Kenny Paolorentano.
No one's gonna spell that, but I'll put links up from the YouTube for this.
All right. Perfect. Yeah. And other than that, if you come out to any of the world-changing events, there's a good chance you'll find me in the kitchen.
Beautiful. That would be quite funny if people just show. Is Kenny in here? I heard the podcast with Kenny. Kenny's busy right now. Well, tell him to come out here. I want some of his guacamole. You mean guacamole, or wink guacamole? What? Adam Kokesh, talk to him later. Anyway, you're disgusting. All right. Well, this has been fun. It's been fun.
Yeah,
it's been
this
fun
has been
hanging
great.
out. I made a couple of inappropriate jokes, which is important for me. There's got to be a couple of inappropriate jokes. And well, check out his websites and hire him. I've eaten his food. It's good. You won't go wrong hiring Kenny. And I look forward to catching up with you in the next time.
Awesome. Man,
All
thanks
right.
for having me on.
Peace out.